So guys, we are here today as we get closer, and this is the week of BT20's release. We are going to be jumping into our next video here as we have another What's the Scoop. It's time to talk about a deck that hasn't seen a lot of spotlight but gets a lot of support out of BT20 as the Royal Knight descends, and we have Examon as Examon retakes its place among the Royal Knights and is going to be featured in BT20 and is obviously the focus of today's What's the Scoop. So let's get into it, but before I get into it, I have one little request of you. And if you know what it is here, and that's to accelerate the sub count, help us grow by liking, subscribing, and also remembering to go ahead and leave comments down below to let me know what you think of the videos, because it always helps. But as you know, if you are new to What's the Scoop or are already a veteran, you know that when you get a first look, so do I, as I get to tell you, as you can sit down, plug in, put in the background, I don't know, stream it to your TV, put in a speaker, listen to the car ride, and hear about these amazing cards, so you don't have to go anywhere else, as this is your one-stop shop to get all the information on the cards that you want to hear. But enough of that, let's jump straight into it as we have the new Examon support here at BT20, as we have two lines of support. Technically, I mean, it's all one deck, but I say two lines of support because technically there are separate strategies in theory, because there is enough Digimon for both sides, as we have our predominant blue-red version of the strategy with those cards focusing around Wingdramon and Slayerdramon, but then also we have our green-red version, which is something like the Grounddramon and Breakdramon, and obviously this will lead into Examon. So we'll jump straight into it by talking about the egg, which is actually blue. This is going to be a brand new baby Domon. I don't think for anyone who's already played Examon that this is anything strange, as we have a new effect where when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon has Dracomon or Examon in its text, you get to draw one card. Very good. Moving into the brand new and starting off, we have a Dracomon. However, this is the first red Dracomon, so this is rather cool. It can specifically Digivolve on top of any baby Domon for a cost of 0, and at the start of your main phase, by trashing one card with Dracomon or Examon in its text in your hand, you get to draw one card and gain one memory. Very cool. For its inheritable during your turn, this Digimon gets 2000 DP. Very solid. Moving into the blue-red Cordramon, starting off here. This one can Digivolve on top of any level 3 with Dracomon in its name for a cost of 2. Its main skill is jamming, and then during your turn, when any of your green Digimon with Dracomon or Examon in their text are played, this Digimon may Digivolve into Wingdramon in the hand with the Digi-Evolution cost reduced by 2. Then for its inheritable, during your turn, this Digimon gets 2000 DP. Very cool. Moving into the brand new Wingdramon here. This brand new Wingdramon is going to be a dual color blue-red, so very cool. And it can Digivolve specifically on top of Cordramon for a cost of 3. For its on play and when Digivolving effect, you get to delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less. And then during all turns, this Digimon is also treated as a level 6 for Slayer, or as a level 6 Slayerdramon, for Examon's DNA Digi-Evolution. For its inheritable, it gives security attack +1, always good to have. Now, talking about the Mega, we have Slayerdramon. This new Slayerdramon is a dual color blue-red and can Digivolve from Wingdramon or Grounddramon for a cost of 3, and it carries its innate skill, Pearson. So starting off for its on play and when Digivolving effect, you get to trash any 3 Digi-Evolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon, then delete one of their Digimon with no Digi-Evolution cards. During all turns, once per turn, when your opponent's security is removed from one of your Digimon with Dracomon or Examon in its text, may unsuspend. Very cool. And then during all turns, once per turn, when any of your Digimon with Dracomon or Examon in their text would leave the battle area other than by battle, by suspending this Digimon, they don't leave. Very cool to have protection. But now let's jump straight into the green, more predominant colors of the strategy, as we have the green-red Cordramon here. This one can Digivolve on top of any level 3 with Dracomon in its name for a cost of 2, and interestingly enough carries Raid as its innate skill. Then during your turn, when any of your blue Digimon with Dracomon or Examon in their texts are played, this Digimon may Digivolve into Grounddramon in the hand with the Digi-Evolution cost reduced by 2. Then for its inheritable during your turn, this Digimon gets 2000 DP. Very solid. Moving into the new Grounddramon from BT20, we have a specific green-red where it can Digivolve on top of Cordramon for a cost of 3. For its on-playing when Digivolving, you get to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, then one of their Digimon or Tamers can't unsuspend until the end of their turn. Then, during all turns, this Digimon is also treated as a level 6 Break-Dramon for Examon's DNA Digi-Evolution. During all turns once per turn, when this Digimon deletes your opponent's Digimon in battle, trash the top of their security. Very cool. Moving into the brand new Break-Dramon, this one was expected obviously, as this is a dual color green-red and can digivolve on top of Ground Dramon or Wing Dramon for a cost of 3 specifically. It carries Blocker as its innate skill and is able to, on play and when digivolving, suspend 2 of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, then one of your Digimon may attack. During all turns once per turn, when any of your Digimon with Dracomon or Examon in their text deletes your opponent's Digimon in battle, you get to delete one of their suspended Digimon or Tamers. Then, during all turns for its inheritable, once per turn, when any of your Digimon with Dracomon or Examon in their text delete your opponent's Digimon in battle, you delete one of their suspended Digimon or Tamers, so kind of a repeat of its main effect. But we are all here for the main boss himself, as it's time to look at the brand new Examon Ace. As Examon finally returns, and this time as an Ace Digimon, this one has a specific DNA Digi-Evolution condition to digivolve from a green level 6 and a blue level 6 for a cost of 0. This obviously is also paired up with its Blast DNA mechanic, where it can blast DNA into with a Break Dramon and Slayer Dramon into obviously Examon, and it carries Raid, Piercing, Blocker, and Evade. Many skills stacked here, but more importantly, for its when digivolving, if it's DNA digivolving, you get to return all of your opponent's Digimon with the highest DP to the bottom of their deck. Then during all turns once per turn, when any Digimon suspend, this Digimon may unsuspend. So very cool. And finally, topping it off, it carries the overflow of -5, something to be expected with a level 7 of this magnitude. And finally, we have the only option associated with the archetype in BT20, as we have Unleash the Dragon Gene. For its main effect, you may play one Digimon card with Dracomon or Examon in its text from your hand with the play cost reduced by 3. Then you place this card into the battle area. During all turns, when any of your Digimon with Dracomon or Examon in their text will leave the battle area other than in battle, you get to use its delay effect, where 2 of your Digimon may DNA Digivolve into an Examon in your hand. Additionally, for its security effect, you may play one Digimon card with Dracomon in its name from your hand or trash without paying the cost. Then you get to place this card in the battle area. Now that we've covered all the cards, let's talk about what we can do. Now, jumping into it first, I want to preface, I've never played Examon at all, but I have looked at the deck a good amount to understand kind of what it does. So for the support, I think here, what's cool is Bandai is really trying to do a good job, at least I think, of keeping up with some of these older strategies, making sure that when they get them finally a lot of support, they give them a lot. And I mean this not in a joking manner, by the way. I mean this in a more serious manner when we look at something very similar to the BT20 lineup here for Examon in something like the BT20 Imperial Dramon or the Virus Imperial line. The reason why I bring that up is when you look at the way Bandai's treating them, it's making sure that they have more than enough support to either replay the strategy or boost the old cards. So I do like that they've been going this route, because for the Examon line, it's been really interesting because I think this is a deck that actually can see some success because of what its main strategy is. It really just wants to tower into Examon and really control the board that way. So the other Digimon are solid, but it's not really the case. But I do think this deck really suffers from the fact that Digimon has sped up a lot since its introduction in EX3. So, you know, I really do enjoy the fact that they gave an entire lineup, because they really need to make this deck a lot faster if it's going to compete, in my opinion. So they tried to mitigate a lot of that by improving a lot of the cards. Starting at the low end, I do want to say that one thing I was really hoping for is a Dracomon X, because I did think Examon X may come in this set, but I do think they wanted to maybe save that for later on. But I do think that this deck still needed maybe just a touch more support, but I do enjoy that the Dracomon has a similar effect to the Huckmon from this set as well, because both of them are being able to trash, gain memory, and draw cards. Fixes an issue that this deck had, I think, before, which was making sure you had enough draw power, because this deck really was like kind of dual colored in that it had green, blue, and had special evolution conditions did help, but the deck still felt really too slow because it couldn't search enough of its pieces quickly enough. This kind kind of allows you to pair this up with the Dracomon from EX3, where you can hard play the Dracomon, have this in the battle area, then set up your trash to kind of maybe, you know, set up better by drawing and gaining memory so you can digivolve quicker. Because one thing that I find interesting about this deck is it's not very similar to something like the... I don't think Imperial is a good example, but it's not like something where... Or, you know, a great example is the Alter S Omnimon strategy, where you digivolve up. The thing is, with this strategy, you really want to have like parallel lines where eventually you climb up into something maybe like Winggermon and you have Examon in hand, but then maybe you decide, instead of going for the traditional idea of getting both level 6s on field first, you're just going to hard slam Groundgermon or Breakgermon and then immediately go into Examon. You know, this actually, if you're thinking this is strange, if you're not an Examon player, this is actually something I've seen before plenty of times, where people just hard slam the level 5s or 6s down because they can be DNA'd, and they just go for the combo. And it's because once Examon's established, the game changes, because Examons are usually very powerful. I know the BT13 Examon wasn't the best, but it was still something people played. But I do think the actual EX3 Examon was very good. I do think that now with the support kind of lined up the way it is, you really want to get the Slayergermon at least underneath the Examon, because it does technically offer some form of protection, which I think is very important because of the many deletions and also problematics of many decks in the format. I do think it's better that this deck have some type of protection than any, and I do really like that with Breakgermon they really focus on maybe Tamer removal, because they understand to some degree this deck is rather slow. So personally, I really am a fan of some of these cards, because I don't think any of them are bad, by the way. I think they're all good. I just think it's because the pace of the game has changed so much. It makes a deck like this a lot harder to compete. It does mean that this deck is playable, by the way. I'm not gonna like say it's not. It is playable. I just think that it's kind of not fair that it has to compete with so many things that are much faster than it. But ultimately, one thing I like is that you can, in theory, play the game without Examon now in terms of the decks, because you can climb into something like your Slayergermon, and if it's combined with all the lines from BT20, one thing that really makes it a lot better is the fact that you can now get the security attack +1. You have a lot of this DP buffs. So technically a Slayergermon can do at least 2 checks on its own. It has piercing. You know, I'm not really trying to say that this card is, you know, phenomenal, like it's going to make its own deck, but Slayergermon now can be, and Groundgermon as well, can actually be played in their own strategies if you so choose. But I do really like that the effects of these Digimon boost up Examon as well, because he is obviously the focus of the strategy. But like I said, when you look down the lines, you see that there's a lot of built-in tools to try to get you to win the game a little bit quicker. So something like the blue-red Cordgermon has jamming, so I think that's meant to do an early check. I really wish that maybe the Groundgermon and Winggermon maybe were Ace Digimon, believe it or not, because I do think that having the Cordgermon actually do attacks makes sense if you have, you know, DNA conditions or blast evolution, or just to blast evo against people so that they don't expect it. But it's not bad at all. I do think still having the alternate evolution conditions for this deck is fine, because getting into Examon would be way too hard if you didn't have more Cordgermons, or Winggermons and Groundgermons. So it's very important there. Talking about the green-red line a little bit here, I really do enjoy the fact that, very much like the Cordgermon, they have their reduced evolution condition mechanic going on here. So it does allow you to kind of catch up a bit quicker against a lot of these faster paced strategies, but you do have to do it when you play out a corresponding color of the opposite. So for blue Cordgermon, a green, and then for a green Cordgermon, it has to be a blue, or, you know, just a Dracomon. So pretty much it's very important because it has text finally. So as long as the card mentions Dracomon, you can do that reduced Evo. I do think it's important because now you could pass a good amount of memory to your opponent, and it's not the end of the end of the game. Like a lot of people think, oh, if you pass 7, that's a lot. But if you have a Cordgermon that digivolves into Winggermon, and you hard play the Groundgermon for 7, and that happens, and you pass that memory over, the advantage you now have is you have both of them set up to DNA. So I still think what's missing in the inheritables is that I think they need to have one that just says to DNA. I do understand that you're supposed to use the Unleash the Dragon gene, and I do like this card. I think it's still very good, and you will play it in the deck. The one problem I have with Unleash the Dragon Gene is its condition to DNA. So it's when any of your Digimon with Dracomon or Examon in their techs would leave the battle area other than in battle. So the problem I have with this is that, yes, there's lots of removal, but then this doesn't, I think, account for like DP reduction, because if a Digimon has 0 DP, it can't exist. So technically it would leave the battle area, but I don't think you can pull a DNA off of that. I'm very certain you can't, but correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong here, but I'm very certain you can't do that. So, DP reduction is still something you see a lot. Obviously, one of the big ones I'm pointing out is like Takamikazuchi. That's an annoying deck for, I think, this strategy, because they can just outspeed you, and that's not fun. But the point is, if that's the case, then this is a little bit better, because it's like a trap card is basically what it's supposed to be. It's like, if you get rid of one of my pieces, I'll just DNA. But also, it has that problem where you need to have the DNA requirements set up. This card doesn't technically proactively let you like DNA from your hand, which would be kind of crazy if it did. But, you can't ask for everything, and the support's still strong. I want to talk about Break Dramon really quick, and then I'll talk about Examon. Break Dramon is actually a very good card. I think what makes this card very good is that it's able to really deal with something that we don't see a lot of, which is actually consistent tamer removal. Now, what I mean by consistent is this card will immediately pin down tamers, so you can suspend 2 tamers, and then you attack, you delete something, and then when that happens, you just choose to delete one of their suspended Digimon, but instead you can just target tamers, because if you blow out some decks tamers, even though they're not playing a ton, if you blow out their tamers, it really hampers the strategy, so that they have to already have it in hand or a way to get it back. So in the case, this is actually something very strong that just pins down decks that need their tamers. Additionally, it's inheritable, has that same effect but they have to be suspended. So I do really like that addition, because, like I said, this makes the deck have a tool that a lot of decks don't have. So yeah, very good. Talking about Examon Ace, because this is obviously the focus of the video, we have a lot to talk about here. So the main thing that I like about this card is the fact that it carries so many different keywords. This is more so just to make sure that this card, when it hits the field, is going to make an impact and survive. Now, the reason you're wondering why I say it has to survive is that it carries the evade skill still, and I think this is designed so that if someone tries to remove it, you just suspend it to protect it. So very important. But more importantly, for its DNA evolution effect when you digivolve, or technically it's one digivolving, but specifically denotes DNA, you return all your opponent's Digimon with the highest DP to the bottom of the deck. Now, I know for a fact, I think this was designed as your big play. So when you drop this thing, you're meant to just remove a lot of your opponent's stuff, so that they're basically left with, I wouldn't say nothing, but you clear out their best Digimon, so that you could probably pin off the smaller ones, because you have Raid and Piercing. So, you do have to focus on that. But additionally, for its effect that was carried over before, is that when any Digimon suspend, this Digimon may unsuspend. So the reason I want to talk about this is that what this deck now is able to do is pretty much try to go for its big combo and try to end the game quickly. It's not going to necessarily mean it's going to end the game all the time, but you're going to be able to end the game rather quickly, because with the new Wing Dramon, that gives you security attack +1. One of the weaknesses of Examon was that it had to basically chip the opponent, and then when Examon got online, you would do like 2 checks. Now you're now able to use Examon in this way to do 2 checks additionally by itself, but when it unsuspends because of its suspending effect, because it will suspend, this effect now allows it to do 4 checks, so effectively getting you to the game a little bit quicker. Additionally, it having Piercing and Raid means that if you get this thing on field and your opponent can't do anything, or you haven't passed the turn, you're now going to cause a lot of damage on your turn. Because with the 2000 DP inheritables of the new Cordramon, or the blue line, you now have the ability to get this thing to like 17. After it gets to 17, I mean, there's nothing really that it has to worry about besides like options, because there's no Digimon that are higher than that. And then if you can get it to like 19, I mean, at that point, this thing is just clearing everything. So the point I'm trying to get across here is that Examon Ace is fantastic. I think this deck has a very niche pull into the metagame. I did want to focus it on a What's the Scoop, because I do think Examon's a deck that always gets kind of left behind in people's minds until someone decides that they want to try it. This is also just a quick thing I want to make for people who, when they watch these videos, I know how the metagame works for Digimon, but personally I'm more of, I always promote more of a casual approach to any card game first, because if you don't like it in general, most people don't want to play something competitively. So I always push, decks like that are less, I would say less competitive for sure, but they still have some plays and they're still fun. So I do push them, but it doesn't mean that I don't understand the metagame. I understand pretty much what's going on for the most part. It's just that I think more people would have fun if they approach it from a less, I would say less competitive side, but they can still play competitively because you still need to enjoy what you're doing. That's just from all the years I've played Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just how I approach things. I just wanted to make that clear because I think if you don't like something, but you play it competitively, that kind of is the reason maybe why you're not doing as well. It's just because your mind's off somewhere else. But if you want to play Digimon well, I think always find something you can enjoy and play it well, and then build up. That's why What's the Scoop's here to give you guys all the information you need. And this is why I think Examon, although I don't think will be a top deck in BT20 at all, I do think going into BT or going post BT20, this is a deck you should keep on your radar because a great pilot with this deck can catch you off guard. And it is one of the reasons why I still think this deck is something you need to watch out for, because although I don't think competitively you'll see it often, if there's a good pilot for this deck, you must be careful because this deck can easily catch anyone off guard, and you could have a field set up relatively well, but if you fall into maybe the blast DNA condition of this card, which I haven't mentioned is also extremely good, because if I'm correct, because of its counter effect, you can treat Break Dramon, Slayer Dramon as Wing Dramon and Ground Dramon. So this card is actually far more alive than it isn't. So that's kind of the one thing, is that with this deck now, you have a problem where it's a guessing game. If they have Ground Dramon and Wing Dramon on field, but they don't have any way to DNA, you could play, a lot of people might play into this. So keeping that in mind is just one of the ways I say that this deck could definitely show itself up at maybe like a regional or locals easily, and a skilled pilot can take this deck very far. But I think I'm going to close the video off here. I think I've talked long enough. But as always, guys, this has been Brad from the Ed Army signing off. I hope you enjoyed this What's the Scoop focusing on Examon, and I hope you enjoy the other videos on the channel. But as always, I'm signing off, and for all of you out there, just sign on.